I want to let everyone know the reason why I'm here tonight. And the reason why I'm here tonight is because of this wonderful woman. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not here to do anything but to provide a service that Charmin wants me to do for you guys. Because the wonderful thing about Charmin, she loves you all. She truly does. Her passion and her conviction for you guys is just outstanding. So you have her to thank, not me. So what I want to do tonight is I want to kind of give you guys some information that I feel that you might need to know. Actually, you really do need to know. I've been in business for about 24 years, helping clients from around the country reframe their bodies and their minds to produce a significant end results. Now, we do this by not formulating or utilizing any form of medication. We go in there, we find out the individual variables that make these folks tick. For me to get to that point, you know, from the age of about 17 to 40, I'm 43 now, I've read over 250 medical textbooks. I've been a published author for 5 years. Last year, 2006, actually, not last year, but in 2006, I was awarded the #1 trainer in the country again for the 3rd year running. And in 2006, I beat 95,000 people who applied. I was also awarded for the 7th year in a row for developing and operating the best working model in the country in a non-clinical situation. So what we're producing in 60 days, our competitors can't produce in a year. But my best accomplishment, my biggest accomplishment that I like, for 11 years, we've set the educational standards in the industry, because for the first time in our industry, we've been able to bridge the gap between the medical industry and the health and fitness industry. So I take all that information and I just produce end results, great end results, time and time again. You know, I'll tell you an interesting story. I have a very wonderful woman that I'm working with right now, and I've been with her for a while. Her name is Bobby, and Bobby says, you know what, Brian, you're an expert at what you do. And when she told me that, I kind of looked away. She goes, why do you have a problem with the word expert? And I'll say, I'll tell you why. You know, people have been trying to tell me this now for 20 years. And the reason I had a problem with the word expert is because we're dealing with the human body. We know less than 5% on how we even work today. And I will never live enough days on this earth if I studied every moment of the day to understand it all. There's just so much to know. And I said, that's why I can't own that word expert. And she said, well, you're missing the point. People understand that, but where you're the expert in it is you're the expert at producing these significant results time and time again. Look at all your awards around your facility. Look at all the medical smocks. That should be proving to you that you're an expert. And for the first time in my life, guess what I think I am? I've grown into it. It's taken me 24 years to kind of grow into that word, so I kind of like it. So now I guess I can say I'm an expert in one little part of the whole puzzle. So again, that's what I do, and everything.
Why did you get into it?
Oh, see, she's prompting me. In my early 20s, I went to school to become a sports medicine doctor. 2 months before I graduated, I was involved in an accident, couldn't walk for a year, and had temporary paralysis for about 7 of those years. So here I am. I have no insurance. I'm as healthy as can be, as a competitive power lifter and Olympic lifter. In fact, a senior in high school, pound for pound, I was the strongest kid in the United States. I could do 1,000 push-ups nonstop. 250 one-arm push-ups. I was bench pressing back then. As a senior, I weighed 220 pounds. Drug-free, I was bench pressing 405 pounds. Deadlifting and squatting 590, and clean and jerking 285. All natural. So I had all these years of experience. I had everything going for me. I've been coaching athletes for years. And then one day I wake up, at noon, I'm not walking. So I thought to myself, what am I going to do now? And it was amazing. My mother's been in the court system for 35 years, and my wife was doing litigation for State Farm Insurance at the time. And I'll never forget this day. You know, I'm sitting in the hospital, and I'm trying to maintain, you know, the room spinning, and my body's going into shock, and I'm on this medication. I'm trying to keep my wits about myself, and literally, I'm fighting these demons in my body that want me to pass out, and I'm fighting them, and I didn't want to give up until my wife of 25 years now and my mother had come down to tell me what to do, because I wouldn't sign the forms, because the form stated if anything happened to me and I couldn't walk again for the rest of my life, it wasn't the hospital's responsibility, and I didn't understand it then because I didn't know much about that. So they come down, they say, go ahead and sign this. So I signed this, and my whole life completely changed. Everything that I worked so hard for, because I was just a nerd. I studied very hard, I trained very hard, and I had my whole life mapped out, which I thought I did. And then one day, I was disabled significantly. So that's how that business started. So what I did in my downtime, because I literally have downtime now, and I was telling you about this, I formulated a business plan. So I was looking at the time we're talking about, there really wasn't cell phones back then. If they were about this big, right, with the antenna. I think the military built them. So I have this free time, and I look in the LA Times, because that's what we did. We looked in the LA Times back then, and I see this little ad for a doctor in Santa Barbara for a personal trainer, and I started reading the subject. I've never even heard the term. So I called them up and I asked the young lady, can I come down and interview the doctor? She said, well, that's an odd request, but let me ask him. So she asked the doctor, and he said, yeah, come on down. So I was scheduled to have a half-an-hour meeting and to be in a half a day. So I got all excited about this, so I decided to do my business plan and my market research. It took me a year and a half. So I went from Santa Barbara to Beverly Hills. I went to every clinic, every hospital, everything physical therapy, anything to do with wellness and the overall being of people. In a year and a half, I was highly disappointed. And I'll tell you why. And it still drives me today. I couldn't believe that people were putting that much effort, that much time, that much money into things that weren't measurable, things weren't trackable. People didn't really understand the science, and they didn't know how to formulate and put it all together. So that's when I built my business. The first business I started in 1987 was called American Built Bodies. The reason I called it that is because at that time, 80% of my clients were athletes, college athletes, you name it, they were just athletes. So it just worked from there. I started working with them, and then I started working with more business professionals, and that's what we have today. And like I said, 35% of our clients don't even live in California. They come from all over the country. And as a business point, this will be our best year ever. So that's really what got me started in this. So even though I might not know every single element out there, I know what it is to start from nothing all over again. I really do. I know what it means to suffer. I know what it means to have all my hopes and my dreams completely wiped out.
And you know what it's like to have limitations, physical
limitations. Big-time limitations. You know what's so interesting? You really do not know how heavy your legs are until you can't move them, or you have partial use of them. You know, one thing that used to be so embarrassing for me, when I got up to walking, see, I have complete posterior and anterior fusion of my lumbar spine. My first surgery was 16 hours. My second surgery was 8 hours. In April, this year in April, it'll be 2 years, I had my last surgery related to my back. They ripped me back open from hip to hip. They pulled all my intestines out and repacked it and sewed it all back together. That was only done almost 2 years ago. But I had to take medication to go to the bathroom for 15 years. So I still had things that I was dealing with. And I will probably deal with them for the rest of my life in one way or another. If you notice, my gait is completely changed. Because my whole lumbar spine's fused, guess what's happening? I don't have the flexibility in that area. So as I get older, now I'm 43, when I walk like this. I mean, it's funny. I'm not stiff, but my muscles have compensated for my hip joints. You know, my IT bands are tighter. My sacrum's tighter. All that has just become tighter over time, and I still train every single day. I train about an hour with resistive weights and an hour of cardio, but I only do it for health. But still with that, I'm still kind of doing this. And I really notice in the morning when I'm out of the shower, because out of my shower, when I get out of the shower and look to the left, there's a mirror there. So I check myself out first, of course. But I watch myself walk down here, and it's just a funny thing I've started to know over time. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I will have to deal with this for the rest of my life. But the good part about it is that I overcame this. And so can you. A lot of this. Now, that's not why I'm here.
No, but I like to...
And usually most people don't even hear that story.
Fancy guy
right.
Trying to...
Right. And most people don't know that story. And you guys don't know this, but when I came in here tonight, when I started, I told them this. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not here to do any self-promoting. I'm just here to give to everyone because this woman's love for you guys is really tremendous. And I admire that. So that's what I kind of do in a nutshell. So let's look over here. Now, in this 24 years, I've come across 3 very key observations that are critical. And this is from the foundation of when I first started this. And the biggest observation is people do not believe in the science. One thing I'm a stickler for science. I was raised in the science community. I was raised in big business. I was raised around a lot of doctors, chemists, and physicists, so I've heard this information my whole entire life. In fact, when I got involved in this business, I had a lot of great mentors, and I went to them and I said, I need to know how this really works. Boy, did I get an incredible education. From the age of 17 to the age of 40, I've read over 250 medical textbooks. That's not including all the other the other books that I've read on the subject. It's that massive. And I was asked a question tonight, will there ever be a generic program? It is impossible. We're the most complicated things in the universe that we know today. Some of our limitations are what? They know less than 5% on how we work today. But the good side of that, science tells us that 93% of our genetic potential, we never live long enough to maximize it. We're capable of so much, it's unbelievable. Even in a sports application. Now, you two, because you're into cycling, have you ever heard of a gentleman named Bill Toomey?
Yeah, from Toomey Bag?
Bill, no, not that one. Bill Toomey was the triathlon. Now, Bill Toomey is a client of mine. Great little story with Bill. Bill is a gold medalist, and he was in the decathlon. That's what he got his gold medal in. Bill, 20-something years ago, had back surgery that they messed up. So Bill comes to me, seeks me out. All my business is by referral. So Bill comes down and he says, I heard about you. I want to see if you can help me. And the same thing like I told you. I need all your medical information. I need to talk to your doctor. I need to really see what's going on here. So they provide the information for me. And I said, you know what, Bill, I think I can I can help you. See, Bill hasn't ran in 20 years. He says, if you can get me to run in a year, I will love you forever. In 4 weeks, I got that man to run. When I got him to run in my facility, we all sat down there and we cried because he had some pretty significant limitations that he was convinced that he could not overcome them. And guess what I believe? Because of my personal experience, you can overcome about everything in your life, regardless if it's physical or anything else. Even in a business aspect, I've become very successful in what I've done. I started in a business that was at its infancy stage. When I went to my mother that was big in business, I said, Mom, this is what I want to do. And you know what she told me? Please don't do it. Get involved in anything else I will support you, but do not do this. And I asked her why. She says, because you're going to have to educate a population to be successful. Well, I was either too ignorant or too stupid, too young. I thought, well, I can do this. And it's been a lot of hard work, but I was able to get it done. So everything can be overcome. So I want you to know that. So the first thing is we're not believing in the science. Your body is very, very specific. It's been designed for millions of years to work in a specific fashion. What happens is we're losing this huge disconnect. There's been a disconnect. People think that this has become a simple thing and a simple process. It's not. At all the clients that I've worked with, over 15,000 clients now in 24 years, no one comes to me to do diet or exercise ever. What do they come for? They come to understand the science and how it applies to them. And if you do not understand how the science applies to yourself, you will be a statistics once we get in the second facet of life called biochemical aging. Once we hit biochemical aging, how long we live and the quality of our life is established every single day. And that's why they tell us we either fight to live or we fight to die. Folks, there's no in between. And even if you just want to push this under the pillow or under the blanket and you think it's going to go away, it doesn't go away. And people are not getting this message. There's a lot of great information out there now, and I think what I've seen from my eyes is this. They're taking this information that's complicated and they're watering it down where people are not understanding it. They think it's simple. And another thing I hear a lot, it's not going to happen to me. Well, guess what? You were born and you're going to die. Eventually, it's going to happen to you. For the first time in recorded history, we have the opportunity to live longer and better than anyone who's occupied this planet. But instead of taking that information and going with it, we're going the opposite direction. So now what they're telling us, for the first time in recorded history, we're dying prematurely and have more illness than we've ever done before because our bodies are very specific on how they work. So what do? We assume we know much. We assume we know more than we actually know. That's a big mistake. Now, you guys being people in athletics and cycling, is cycling an easy process?
It's very individual, tough process.
That's right. It's all individual, tough process. Just like the word workout. When you guys work out on your bikes, what's the first word? Work. It's work. Our bodies respond to them. And them at athletes, they know this because their body's adapting. We adapt what? Physiologically and chemically to all the stress that's taking place. The same thing applies in your situation here. Even though I don't really deal with a lot of athletes anymore, the same principles will apply to you. The body's very specific. They have great days. They have bad days. They have days like, I can't figure this out, and days, well, gosh, I just got it right. You know, they feel it. And that's what's so good about cycling, especially because it's an individual sport, and you got to be in it to heart, soul, and mind. If you're not, don't even get on your bike, right? Yeah, it's tough. So we know more, and the biggest one is people aren't getting their information measured. You can never manage anything if you can't get it measured. So people are thinking this is an easy process, and they're not getting it measured properly, and because they're in that second facet of life, they're losing between 90 to 95% of anything related to their health, and that's why I work more on the health components and not the athletic components. Athletes, I love them. Boy, can I turn them around, because they're smart. They know this, especially cyclists. Cyclists are incredible. Olympic lifters, not power lifters, Olympic lifters, they're very technical people. Skaters are technical people. These are the people that really need to be in tune with their sport, because if they don't, not only will their performance drop, but the likelihood of them getting hurt is very high. So we need to know how to measure that, okay? Now look at what George Bernard Shaw told us. He said 2% of the population thinks, 3% of the population think they think, and 95% of the population would rather die than think. Even though that's sad, it's true. In this part here, it's what's killing us and putting us in accelerated aging and premature death and illness patterns faster than anything out there today. Because we don't want to take responsibility. We want someone else to take responsibility for this. And you have to take responsibility for yourself. As we go through this, you're going to ask me how we take responsibility, and I'm going to show you, because I'm building this just for you folks tonight. Okay. So let's look at the 3 leading causes of death, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. I just want you to know it. So heart disease accounts for over 710,000 lives per year in the United States.
And Brian, how old was your brother when he died?
Oh, gosh. You. Okay. My brother was a brilliant kid. He was a prodigy. Very bright kid. Graduated with his master's in business at 19 or 18 years old. Very smart. Very good. But because he had this thing called youth, he never thought really too much about his health. Even though he's extremely active and got out there and did a lot of wonderful things, he just wasn't getting this. And he was a big ski fanatic. One year he went skiing and he had a significant crash. So what happened, he ended up breaking his clavicle and twisting it. So he went to the doctors, and the doctor said, look, and he was complaining that his heart was hurting him. So he goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, no, Jeff. You know, it's just bruising, significant bruising, because it looked like a truck had ran over him. It's just significant bruising. It'll go away. So Jeff, he's a business executive at this age, young kid at 30. So, and he travels the world. That's what he does for business. So he goes home and he decides he's going to take some time off and just recover on this. Well, my mother was in contact with Jeff every 2 to 3 days. They just have this great little bond. You know, I have children now, and I love my kids, and even though I love them both, our relationships are different. And my mother's and Jeff's relationship was just like this. I mean, they were just attached at the hip. So it had been a couple of days, and my mother hadn't heard back from Jeff. So she had called his business partner and said, look, where's Jeff? And he explained to her, well, Jeff didn't go to this business trip in New York City. He stayed home because he wasn't feeling well. But I'm flying back today. I will check on Jeff. Well, he was the one that found Jeff. Jeff had died in his sleep.
At 29, wasn't
he? He was 30 years old.
30 years old.
What he had a septal tear. So in your heart, you have this thing called the aortic arch. When the universe or God or whatever your feeling is that built us, when it built that, it built 2 separate pieces. And when those pieces came together, he had a genetic time bomb. They started to split. Once you have a septal tear, they can't save you. Even if you're in the hospital, they can't save you. Oh, the actor, Three's Company, John Ritter, that's what he died of.
So that was pre-existing? Or was it from the accident?
He was born with it.
You
But
never knew
but
it.
see, he started feeling the signs of this. And because he was young and he thought he was relatively healthy, he didn't go to the doctor for that. And the doctors didn't recognize what was happening to Jeff when he did go. They said his clavicle was bruising and was twisted. It was interesting, just a little side note on Jeff. I talked to the doctor that performed his autopsy, and I went through the reports with him, and I wanted to know, when did Jeff die? Jeff actually died in his sleep. There was no trauma to his body. He was dead in about 3 to 4 seconds. He bled that fast. This is what's kind of perplexing. Think about this. We know that Jeff was dead. He died in his sleep. He was dead for 9 days before they found him, because he traveled. His neighbors never saw him. They never knew him. He lived in this big house on a hill, and no one saw him. When he's dead for 9 days, but this is what kind of gets me, because there was no trauma. So he died before his spinal cord and his brain could recognize it. When does he realize that he's dead? He never had this reaction. He had the remote controller still in his hand. There was no trauma to his right. And I think, when does he realize that he's passed on? So just kind of a little side note there. So let's go back to here. Now, what's so interesting about everything that we see here, cancer, you can see what causes, how many people die from that. The number 3 leading cause of death in the United States is what? Medical care. These are individuals that are being treated with medication to help them get through life. And why is that? Because medication, even though it's wonderful, and I would take it in a heartbeat if I really truly needed it, you need to make sure that when you're working with these folks, that it's taking care of the underlying problem and it's not putting a Band-Aid on it. I do this great presentation I toured the country given. It's the 7 stages of disease. I wish I had time to go through that with you folks here. But out of all this, because that's not why we're really here tonight, 80-90% of all premature illnesses and death is avoidable. And why is that? Even though you might have a genetic disposition for it, your genetics loads the gun, but it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Now, how did I start this today? I said that our bodies are very specific on what they do and how they respond. Correct? What also did I say about that? I said that lifestyle... Yeah. Lifestyle is so critical because, as you'll see, our bodies in the second facet of life, does anyone know what the second facet of life is? Do you guys remember that from chemistry or biology?
After third.
Well, watch what happens. I'll explain this a little bit. From the time of conception, here you have a little egg and this little bitty cycling sperm, and they get to this little egg and they go, bingo, jackpot, and they get in there, right? So now this is powerful. When that egg is fertilized by the sperm, mitosis starts. So that cell starts to vibrate and shake, and it builds a sphere. And that sphere starts to shake and develop and develop and develop and develop and develop into an adult. How long does that typically take us? Until 21 years. So, from the time of conception to about roughly the age of 21, take a week or a month or a year in any direction, what should we do as an organism or as a person? We should only do one thing. And what's that one thing?
You're growing.
We only grow. We don't age. The only time there's an interruption in that is if there's a genetic disposition, right? You have a genetic or genetic disposition, right? There's obesity in the picture or 2-stage diabetes. Now, if you watch the research they did on 2-stage diabetes on children, what did they find out? This is a 5-pound fat model. Choo-choo. Only 5 pounds. What happens is this. If children 15 years of age they're obese, couple that, if they have 2-stage diabetes, guess when those kids start to age?
Wow.
About 7.
Oh, 7?
So they start to get into the aging process about 7. So these kids on a whole, and even though they know most of these elements that they're dealing with is environmental, they can reverse this, guess what they are? They assume the average loss of life for these kids are 25 to 30 years.
Wow.
Now, they know because most of this is environmental, not genetic, and they can reverse this, guess where the real damage comes? They're not even convinced. If they turn it around, they can even save one of those years lost because they never got to grow. It's that important. And if you look at it on a medical term, financially, the government, they are in trouble now. They're under the gun because they tell us if we do not control this, that in the next 15 to 20 to 25 years, medical costs to treat this will bankrupt us. Every single 10-leading affliction that kills us today, the number one precursor is fat. And why is that? Remember what fat cells do? Fat cells are unique. They're completely different, that's right, than any other cell in the body. Because what they do, they have to always be oxygenated. If you're processing oxygen, VO2 testing, right, getting that oxygen in the cell, guess where all the oxygen needs to go first before it can go to any other structure or organ in your body? Right here. Because if you don't, the infection would kill you in about 24 hours. It's so toxic. So not only is fat not attractive, and not only does it bring your performance down, but it's the number one thing that accelerates premature illness and death that we know today. What is our savior? The body's ability to process oxygen and the body's ability to put muscle mass on there, but to keep the muscle mass, you guys know this, highly oxygenated. So those are the things that you guys need to learn. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. Okay? So, am I boring anybody yet? They're laughing at me. Just kidding. Just kidding. So, let's look at this. What are the 3 factors of health? And I kind of covered this a little bit. What do we put into our bodies? What do they mean by that? Our bodies are very caloric specific, but they're also very ratio specific. What is lipolysis? Does anyone know what lipolysis is?
No.
Now, let's go back to this. I said there's three facets of life. You guys are in the second facet of life. It's called biochemical aging. That means that you go through a 3 hormonal cycle every 24 hours. When you wake up in the morning, you've come out of your biggest one. Does your body metabolize more when you sleep or when you're awake?
When you're awake.
When you sleep.
Really?
Yes. All the recovery takes place when you sleep. And you want to hear something? Yeah, it's metabolized and it's getting all this done. You know, it's another thing that you guys will learn in the next 3 to 5 years, which is so amazing. It just blows my mind. They're telling us this, and I don't know a whole lot of it, but I'll tell you. But they are telling us this, that every time you go to sleep, well, when someone's schizophrenic, what does that mean?
Because they're sleep deprived, or they're on a
They
nap.
never go into REM sleep.
Right.
They can never fully recover. So what happens, you got your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. These people that never get into REM sleep, guess what starts to happen? Their conscious mind and their subconscious mind start to intertwine. And so they know that birds fly. They know that planes fly. Well, they know they don't fly. Over time, guess what they start to think? Well, planes fly, birds fly, maybe I fly. They can actually convince themselves into this. And this is the most amazing things. When these folks are sitting at the end of a 20-story building and they're looking down and they're feeling their wings, guess what? They're feeling it and they're seeing it. So when they take the plunge, even though we see them go, oh my God, they're falling, guess what they're doing? They're flying. And then they hit the ground and it's all over. So I don't know why I told you that. I told you for a good reason. But so our bodies are very specific on that. And what we do with our bodies. How are we training that body? Are we exercising? Are we not exercising? Okay? Are we stimulating fast-twitching muscles, slow-twitching muscles? Are we producing more mitochondria? Are we producing our body's ability to process oxygen, buffer out carbon dioxide? What are we doing to the system? Because it knows exactly what it needs to do. Okay? And the last one I said, how we measure the effects of our bodies. Okay? How are we measuring this? What are we guiding this from? What are we gauging this from? All the things that are we doing, is it changing these 3 factors? And the 3 factors are what? Regulating metabolism, homeostasis, and lipolysis. Lipolysis, I'm going to identify this. Lipolysis is the body's ability to burn fat 24 hours a day like it was designed to do. Lipolysis takes place where? Not in the muscle, it takes place in the intestines. Okay? Also, ghrelin doesn't take gaining weight. Guess where gaining weight takes place other than what you guys deal with? But if everything was square and fair, weight gain starts from our stomach, from a process called ghrelin, a hormone that's released in our stomach. and how it triggers a process called a hormone NYP in our brain, and how that does what? It slows our metabolism down and increases our cravings for food because we're in a deprived mode. Remember, your body's designed specifically for millions of years to work in a certain way. If we don't work within those confinements, it goes crazy.
That's why eating smaller meals all day is better for you than...
It is, but it's a lot more than that. That's a great start, but it's more caloric specific because our bodies are the laziest things in the universe. What do? We seek pleasure and we want to avoid pain. Well, if you're starting to do something in the beginning, it's painful. What our bodies will do, they will trick us and they'll say, okay, well, you know what? It's no longer painful. You know, not breathing well and not feeling well and not digesting well and being into fever over time. We accept it. And you know why? Because guess where most of our information is trapped? It's not trapped in our brain. It's not trapped in your intestines. They consider your second nervous system. It's trapped. It's not trapped in your brain. It's trapped where? What's connected to your brain? Your spinal cord. And they tell us the reason for that because we go through trillions of chemical reactions per second. If we had to sit there and process it, they say we take 3 steps, sit down for an hour, think about it, register it, and get up and move again. So we have a little flaw in our system. So what that flaw is, it allows us to continue to go through life without feeling all these things taking place. Nothing just happens overnight. It takes weeks to years and months for this to all kind of come to a head. And then all of a sudden, our brains can't deny this anymore, and all it's information overload. Boom! And then we're in trouble. And we say, well, my God, how did that happen? Well, it didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen the day before. It might have happened when you were in your 20s. It might have started then because we did things, because everything was too easy and life is too comfortable for us. We did what? We started living in the moment, living in the moment, living in the moment, and before we know, we're in trouble. You know, I'm 43 years of age. I have an employee that works for me that's 24. And I just told him today, I said, you know the difference between 24 and 43 is? He said, a couple years. I said, nothing. You're there. You just don't know it yet. It happens that quick. Right? Fast, fast, fast. Now look at this. Albert Einstein told us that everything that can be counted, everything that cannot be counted counts, and not, oh my God, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Now, that pertains to this. Just because you count it doesn't mean that it's working. And just because you can't count it doesn't mean that it's not working. And what do they tell us? 93%, like I told you before, 93% of our genetic potential we never maximize. They don't even know. There's so many things about doing simple health habits that are giving you benefits that science doesn't even know today. But the best way to understand it is to be measured. Where's my VO2? Where's my metabolism? Where's my strength curves? Where's my body composition? You have to have this information. And then if you're on medications, you got to understand how those medications work, etc. So this is where it's going to get interesting. The 7 factors of longevity. Okay? But before I discuss that, what's the difference between chronological aging and biological aging? Chronological aging are calendar years. So no matter what happens on my birthday when it comes around, I'm going to be 44. I can't change that. It's going to be that. What's biological aging?
Just the age your body thinks it is to be healthy enough.
Exactly. You regulate your biological age. And that's why they tell us 80 to 90% of everything afflicting us is avoidable. And how is that? Because we can control this biological aging. Now, interesting enough, my brother dies at 30 of a significant injury. Disease, right? He's got a time bomb in his body that no one knew. So guess what I did? Because I'm so well known and I know so many great doctors, I went down to Los Rules Hospital because I'm from Westlake. And I know a lot of the doctors there, and I say, this is what I want done. I want an angiogram. I want my brain scanned. I want my spine scanned. I want my kidneys, my liver, everything ultrasound. I want to know what's taking place. And they said, you're nuts. I said, I want to know if there's anything taking place. You're nuts. I want to know if there's anything taking place. So guess what? They said, we'll do it for you, but you got to pay for it your own money. Guess how much that cost me? And they didn't even charge me for their time. $20,000. The best $20,000 I've ever spent in my life. You know why? Because I knew I had. But guess what I loved from that? This was 10 years ago. When I had this done, you know what they told me? They said I'm one of the best specimens they've ever seen. I'm functioning about a 16-year-old kid in my 40s. And I just love that information.
There's a scales. You can buy this scale for about $100. It gives you the same information, so you could have saved some money.
Right. You know what? If they had it then, I probably would have done it. So let's look at these 7 factors of longevity. Now, as I go through here, I want you to be realistic about this. I want you to think how many of these you've done on a daily basis for a minimum of 6 months, because you need to be in them 6 months minimum for them to take real effect, okay? So exercise daily. What do we mean by that? We need at least 20 to 30 minutes of musculoskeletal stress. And this isn't for athletics. This is just for longevity. And then we need anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes of cardio on a daily basis, okay? And I'm going to be polite, and I'm going to be nice about this. So that's what we have, the first one. The second one is to maintain proper weight. And I do not mean scale weight. I'm 43 years of age. I'm bringing 13 to 15% body fat. How much do I look like I weigh?
160.
What's that?
160.
Okay. What do you think?
180.
What do you think?
210.
What do you think? 210. Most people don't realize I weigh 210. For a 43-year-old man, only 5'7", how much should I weigh? About 175 pounds. So guess what I'm considered? Overweight. So I don't care about your weight on the scale. What I care about is your body composition. Now let me show you how out of whack looking at your weight for your health is. What's that race where they go around the track, the big one every year? The Indianapolis 500. It would be like taking a Model T and racing it just would make no sense. That's the same thing here. Your weight really has nothing to do with it. It's your body composition. And what do they tell us? See this?
The body fat you're looking at.
This is a 5-pound fat model. You folks will know this. They tell us that we need to have between 23 to 25 pounds of solid fat weight on our frame. Anything over 25 pounds of solid fat is detrimental to the health. They are so good now, science is, by predicting the length and quality of life by how overfat an individual is. So you want to know how overfat you truly are. Your scale weight really doesn't matter. Okay, just to hit on that fact. Okay, so you need to be at between 23 to 25 pounds of fat weight on your frame. Now, my wife, which you know her, I battle with her every day. My wife is the same age as I am. We're like a month and a half difference. She's 12% body fat, and she looks incredible. She's 43 years of age. She does more than she's ever done. This woman is incredible, and that's why I'm successful. I was telling you before.
Yeah, that's right.
I get the easy stuff. I get the easy stuff. She controls my life. I go to work. They tell me what I'm doing, where I'm traveling, where I'm speaking, who I'm working with. I don't do any of it. And I love it because I can rely on her. So she makes things easy for me. So I have bait with her because she wants to get down to about 8% body fat, and I don't want her to do it. Because she's just got this number in her head now. She wants to get to 8%. And I just tell her I don't believe it's a good for you. 12% is pretty lean for a woman to begin with, but she handles it well.
What's the average?
For a woman her age, 25, 26. Oh, yeah.
8% would lower.
That's a non-training individual, yeah.
Dangerous level.
Right. You know, women start having big complications when they get about 16% body fat. They just require more than we do because they have more predominantly slow twitching instead of fast twitching fiber. So, I mean, and that's a whole nother thing. So, again, maintain proper weight. So a good body fat composition, no more than 25 pounds of fat weight. Eat correct snacks or correct foods. And what do I mean by that? I mean foods that are calorie specific and ratio specific to keep your body burning fat for fuel all the time. Until you get that measured, you're just never going to guess it. It's just impossible. The fourth one is to eat breakfast every single morning. And why is that so critical? I hit upon it a little bit. We go through 3 hormonal peaks, 3 hormonal cycles every 24 hours. We come out of our biggest one in the morning. When we wake up in our morning, our metabolism now is rock bottom. What also is rock bottom? Our insulin. What else is rock bottom? Our glucagon. Glucagon is a
caffeine
hormone,
level.
or glucan, and that's what people do. They get that. So what happens, glucagon, your body doesn't produce the hormone glucagon. We have to ingest that. So they tell us, now I was raised old-fashioned with my grandparents until I was 17 years of age. And my grandmother used to tell me, Brian, you got to eat breakfast every single morning because it's the most important meal of the day. Well, they knew that instinctively because they were hard workers, but they didn't understand the science. Well, the science now tells us, when you wake up in the morning, if you do not consume food between about 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning, your metabolism can be delayed as much as 50% for the next 24 hours because that cycle needs to come around.
If I don't eat breakfast,
Right.
now that I'm used to eating breakfast, if I don't eat by 10 o'clock, I got to take a nap.
Right.
I mean, I feel that weak.
Right. And what's happening, if you're able to go beyond that, because some people like to fast and do things of that nature, and when they go into that, they can start getting to the second part of disease. It's called toxemia. So what happens, your body starts to metabolize so much that it can't get rid of the waste product, predominantly carbon dioxide, in the bloodstream. It starts to build up, and you guys know that being athletes too. So that will start to build up in your system. So what happens, you start to get tired. You start to get lethargic. You just don't start having it. So if tomorrow, if you guys want a great little experiment, just get up, don't eat until 2 o'clock. And guess what happens at 2 o'clock? Eat at 2 o'clock, and with 15 minutes, your whole energy level is going to go, whoop. But it will be short-lived. The rest of your day will be impacted for the next 24 hours until you go back through that cycle. So go ahead.
What do you think, like a proper breakfast?
Well, I'll show you what I do. Well, it could be. This is what I do. I just like to tell people what I've done for a very long period of time. From the time I wake up until noon, I eat nothing but vegetables, nuts, and fruit.
I told you.
And later on we can get into the science why I do that. One thing you got to keep in mind is that I really don't believe that you can, that nature or the universe, however you want to call it, put it together, that you can over-ingest fruits, vegetables, and good nuts like that.
Like that raw diet.
Well, kind of. Yeah.
You can cook the vegetables, yeah.
You can, but you start breaking down the digestive enzymes. You know, significant about digestive enzymes. You're born with all the digestive enzymes you're going to have. Once you deplete those things, they're gone. Foods from vegetables, your plant foods, the wonderful thing about it, they're loaded of digestive enzymes. So when you start to incorporate these into your meal in the morning, you're feeding your body all these digestive enzymes, so the digestive enzymes that you have in your body, they just get stockpiled. As soon as you start cooking your vegetables, you break the bonds down and you burn the digestive enzymes out. And you can watch this. If you just do it in one day, over 2 days, exactly 2 days, do it this way. One day, just consume nothing but vegetables and fruits until noon. Don't cook them, just eat them raw. Right? And I love onions. My wife hates me for it. I'm like Shrek. I'll literally pick up an onion, eat the whole thing. I just love the taste. It's so sweet to me. So I eat my onions and I eat my vegetables. But do this. Take the same quantity of what you want in your vegetables. One day, cook them all until 12. The next day, don't cook them all and just eat them raw. The difference is instantaneously. It's unbelievable.
Well, I believe that's true, because when I was at my very thinnest and healthiest and muscular, when I was about 24, 25, I ate raw vegetables all the time because I was a flight attendant, and I had to carry them in an ice chest with me, and I ate them all day long, and I was a size 2. But now I tend not to eat them like that the same, because, now I come home and cook, and and I just don't feel the same with
So you know this instinctively. So you already know that. So what I do for the rest of the day...
eat them in the morning because our brains are programmed that you don't eat vegetables.
It's called a train response. So your body's just responding to that stress. And it'll continue heading you in the wrong direction as long as you continue to do that. See, we're all chemically addicted to something. We all are. Some people drink, some people smoke, some people gamble. Some people, unfortunately, murder. I mean, you name it. They're chemically addicted to something. So guess what I tell people? Food. Yeah. I tell them to pick their demons. There's a group out there called Rush. They're the old group from the 80s. And one of the songs that they have is that even when you don't decide you've made a choice,
you made a choice.
That's how it is every day. Even if you don't make a decision, it's made it for you. So you need to take responsibility of this and move forward. So let's go to this. Use little to no alcohol at all. I truly believe in using no form of alcohol, and I'm going to tell you why. I discussed this with you. Has anyone ever heard alcohol sugar? What's so significant about alcohol sugar?
I know now.
Oh, big time. And why does it dehydrate you?
Because you can't
Turns
break
to
it down.
fat.
Aha. Your body can't take it and store it as in sugar. It's because it's so toxic, it's got to convert it all to fat first. So that's why I don't like alcohol sugar. And Dr. Berg, a very good chemist, a friend of mine, I grew up around him, told me something very interesting. He said, if you look at alcohol on a whole, it doesn't matter if it's coming from a fruit, a hop, a rice, a potato. It just doesn't matter where it's coming from. We're the only creatures on the planet that consume any form of alcohol. You know, a rat will eat anything. A cockroach will eat anything. They won't consume alcohol, and they won't consume plastics and cheese. They just won't do it because they know it's poison for them. So what you're doing, you're taking all the waste product of all these things that you're taking in, and we make it into an elixir, into a drink, and we consume it. You know why? The toxins are so significant, they tell us that we could consume, if the average man could ingest true 6 to 8 ounces of alcohol, it's so toxic it would kill the average man. Have you ever heard the story? The guy's an alcoholic for 35 years. One day he walks into the bar, he sits at the counter, he gets halfway through his beer and he dies right on the stool because his body's gone to the point where it says, sorry pal, I'm not doing this anymore. And it absorbs it and they're done. It's that toxic to your system. So what do we like? We like the side effect of that. We like the warmness. We like the comfortableness. We like how it makes us more bold. We like the buzz. Whatever the situation, we get addicted to that process. But on our left to our own devices, we would never consume alcohol. Okay? Sleep 7 to 8 hours per night. And that's good sleep. And I kind of identify what happens when we lose sleep. Now, believe it or not, from this time probably from 15 to about 42-ish, I would only sleep 3 to 5 hours a night. I work 80 to 90 hours a week because I'm always pushing, always moving forward. But now that I'm 43, I've noticed a shift in this last year. I'm requiring a good 7 to 8 hours of sleep now. And the only reason I was able to do that for so long, because I was so physically in tune with myself and so physically fit, I was able to cheat this for a little bit longer, but I'm not able to cheat it anymore. And the last one, don't smoke. And what do they tell us now about smoking? They tell us if you smoke 1 pack of cigarettes, it takes 2 minutes and 22 seconds off your life. That's what now? Irreversible. The damage cannot be reversed. 2 minutes and 22 seconds off your life. So it shows you, and that might not impact you until you're 50 or 60, but it'll show its head again. So again, out of all these factors here, how many have you been able to do on a daily basis without any deviation for 6 months? I want you to think about that. Okay? So, you don't have to tell me, because this is not what this is about. So look at this. So what do we know? Most Americans do what? They will follow 2 of these. Very few people will follow 5 to 7 of these. So let's look at this extreme on both sides here, okay? Now this is where biological and chronological aging really shows itself here in these longevity factors and how important this truly is. Remember, the busier you are, the more complicated your life is, you do not have time to do exercise for exercise's sake. There has to be a purpose behind it. There has to be longevity behind it, or you just won't do it. So let's look at this. So everything that you do should ultimately be for what? To improve the length and the quality of your life. Remember, folks, they are not kidding. 80 to 90% of all premature death and illness is avoidable. But you have to take personal responsibility. It is not going to go away. You are in the second facet of life. How you regulate that and measure that and manage that every single day, honestly, again, will determine how long you live and the quality of your life. Yes.
Can you reverse it if you smoked when you were younger and you drank at college all the time?
You can reverse a lot of it, but you can't change the 2 minutes and 22 seconds lost from smoking. Now, other parts of it you can, but they know, they've calculated it, and 2 minutes and 22 seconds is now irreversible. That doesn't mean that you'll succumb to that. That means that that is unchangeable. Sure, you're going to have to learn how to go through the back door now. And remember, you know, what they say, where there's a will, there's a way. But you got to be educated on this. And remember, it's not a simple thing. I wished it was. And if it was, we'd be the healthiest people in the world. But we're not. We have more available to us. We have more medicine. We have everything. But we're the most deconditioned people on the planet. And why is that? Because we don't take responsibility for our own actions and our own health. Because we're relying on someone else to do it. Because we live in the land of plenty.
Well, and I think that it will only get worse in the future because now, I mean, it used to be that you could just mail a letter and that was sufficient. Now, if someone doesn't use FedEx, I mean, people are irate. If FedEx isn't good enough, just email it to me.
Right.
So everyone's looking for that quick fix, that instant gratification.
Right.
I mean, there's kids that never leave their computers
Right.
because
Yeah.
they can live a complete life in their mind.
Right. Do you hear about that, what happened last year? It was, I think, in England. There's a woman that was going to be charged for child abuse. And they wanted to put her away. And in 2000, this year, they're going to try to pass a law. And guess what they're going to try to pass? If they can prove that a child by the age of 15, if that child has 2-stage diabetes and is morbidly obese, if they can prove that that's not a genetic process but an environmental impact, they want to start doing what? Charging these parents with child abuse because you have kids that have no clue. They don't know. They do not know. And as one doctor said, it would be like giving a child alcohol on a daily basis and cigarettes. Would you ever do that? No way. And people don't understand. It's basically the same thing that you're doing to the child. We just don't understand that. And as science improves and people get a little bit more educated, they start to get this information. And like I told you before in the beginning of this presentation, our government, they're really looking at this hard. And why is that? Because the medical costs will bankrupt us in the next 15 to 25 years if they do not turn this around. You're going to start seeing more programs geared towards kids because kids are truly the future. But if you kill kids off prematurely and it costs too much for them to live, we're all in a lot of trouble.
Do you think they really want to do that instead of looking at the money that they can make by having sick people?
It's all about the money. So they're realizing for them to have more of it, they better start taking care of this problem right now. You know what they say? Two rights don't make a left. It's just how it works. Two wrongs don't make a right. You just got to get to the root of the matter, figure it out, and take responsibility on that. But we all have to do that.
Well, I think because they need to start looking at children's school programs because the food
There's
that
not
the
even
kids
physical education
there's no
anymore.
PE anymore, and they have look at the cafeterias.
McDonald's.
I mean,
Right. Isn't that amazing? I'm 43. When I was a kid, you had the boys club, you had the YMCA, you had PE. Everyone hated PE, but we all had to go. We had physical ed along with. We had all these programs. We had basketball programs and football programs and baseball programs. The schools would pay to ship the kids for free to these events. You didn't have to pay to be in any of these sports. Now they don't even have them. And we're having a big problem in the United States. And what? It's going to get worse before it's going to get better. Because you can't push this information underneath the rug. It just doesn't happen that way. So I know I've covered a lot of information. Is there any questions you guys have? No?
well,
A million.
yeah. Well, okay. So I think what frustrates me sometimes, in the older I get, is because I know almost, like you said in the beginning, I know too much but not enough, And the problem is I start thinking of going to the gym and working out and doing the stuff, but then I think, it's going to take me, a year. Or, and I don't take it one day at a time and look at it like a lifetime change. I'm looking at it because I'm programmed for a quick fix,
Right.
So explain to everyone, what if, just so you have hope, so we all have hope that this program, or things do work and you do see results. Tell them that story you told us earlier about the singer.
Oh.
That if it's done properly and we'll
Okay.
see results.
Right. Again, I am starting to own that word expert now. I don't know if you guys heard me talk. Did you guys hear me talk about that? It's because of the results that I'm producing. This is a perfect example. I have a client, his name is Lamont Dozier. I don't know if you guys heard of him, but
Holland Dozier and
what's that?
as in Holland Dozier and Holland.
Yeah, the singer, songwriter.
He was responsible for early Motown hits.
That's right.
I was a DJ for 12 years.
Right. So I have Lamont. And Lamont came to me, and he was referred. And I don't remember who referred him, but Lamont comes to me, this big composer. He had 54 #1 hits and is doing, plays and songs right now all over the world. So he comes to me, and he's got some pretty significant medical issues that I can't embark on, but he's got these things. And he seeks me out, and he tells me, they told me if anyone can help me, non-medically, it's you. I says, okay, well, what's going on? So he tells me what's going on. I said, okay, I need all the reports. So they send me all the medical reports. I look at all the information. I says, okay, I can help you. This is what Lamont wants. Lamont is going to get a professorship at USC. So they're going to honor Lamont, and all Lamont wants to do is to get out of his wheelchair and get up on stage and just to talk and tell about his story. So Lamont has to lose 50 pounds, and he's got like 5 weeks to do this. Plus, he's got to get healthy. So here comes Lamont. We start working with him. I start working with him. It's now time for the event. I dropped his 50 pounds of solid fat weight off him in 5 weeks. So now we're at the USC. I'm now sitting at his table because I've done this thing for him. I'm sitting at his table. It's for USC. We're at the Grand Hotel in LA. So I'm sitting down there, and he gets up on the stage and he starts talking about a story. Then he goes and he sings 5 songs. And he just rocks the house. He's singing and he's dancing. He's having a good time. I'm sitting right across from his wife. Her name is Barbara. She looks at me the whole entire time, and she just weeping her eyes out. You know why? Because I was able to do something for Lamont that the doctor said he can't get there because of how old he is and the health elements that he had. And I was able to show them that that is just not the case. So now he's signed up back in with me, and I'll see him for another month and a half, and that probably won't end.
But I think what's really important about what Brian's saying is, if you don't believe you can do it, you can't do it. So, going into a workout program and all these things, I mean, especially for all of us that have had, a pituitary hormonal disorder, I mean, you're hit pretty quickly most of the time with some huge challenges, and really challenges that other people may experience. Brian's experienced health problems. I mean, there are health challenges out there, but you weren't prepared for these health challenges and these things. And if you eventually start becoming your disease, then that's what you will work with, is these limitations. So until we can switch the fact that, yes, we had a challenge, we have challenges, but there's still a way to switch your mind to know that there is a way to still go on to do great things.
There really is.
Those are not all your limitations.
Right.
It's part of what it is. Part of anybody's illness and limitations is how they believe in that illness and limitation.
Correct. We are so powerful in our own rights. If you meditate on it and you listen to your body and you understand where you're at, you can overcome about anything. And I'll use a different example. I'll use myself as in a business. I came from a very significant injury. I started my business out of my house. You know what I made my first year in business? $16,000. And I was elated. You know what I make now in my business? $3 million a year for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Did you think that was possible in the beginning?
I always knew it was. I believed in it. But it's really interesting. In my industry, the people
Your mother didn't.
Oh, gosh, she told me to go in a different direction.
So that was the point. You did,
Well,
so you made it
now,
happen.
now watch this. And just to use this as an example, not to scare anybody, but in my industry, the average income of a person in my industry is anywhere between $13,000 to $15,000. That's why they call it a feast or famine business. They have second or third jobs to supplement this business. On my own accord, without my other people within my business, I still produce about $1.3 million all by myself. My mother told me not to do it. But guess what I thought? Why not? Because, see, I didn't know that I couldn't do it. The only one that told me I couldn't do it, you didn't hear the story before, the guy that had the business plan with it, and he said, "Did you do this?" And I said,
Tell them that story.
"Oh, gosh. Okay, I'll tell you. This is kind of cute." So here I am. I'm not walking, and I'm basically immobile. So I build this business plan. I have nothing but time. So there's a free service called SCORE at the time. So I called them up and I said, "Look, I want someone to look at a business plan that I formulated." And they said, "Okay." So I set this appointment up, and I was telling you the story. I walk in there, I'm in my little suit, and I have my business plan. This big binder is 1,500 pages. So I walk in there, and there's a table about this size.
You barely could walk in there. I mean, you weren't.
Well, you're right. Oh, yeah. I
doing
mean,
that,
walking for 7 years wasn't walking.
Yeah.
So I'm in here. I go into this conference room, and there's a table about this big, and he's sitting right where you're sitting. And there's a chair on the other side. So he's sitting here, and I'm walking in through the door. So I go there. He doesn't even look at me. He says, "Sit down." Okay? So the gentleman that was going to review my business plan. So I sit down.
From this company school.
Yeah. So I sit down, and he goes, "Why are you here, Mr. Theiss?" And I said, "I'm here for you to look at my business plan." He says, "Well, where is it?" I said, "It's right here." Because it's like this. It's 1,500 pages. He said, "Bring it to me." So I get up, I walk it over, and I give it to him. I stand on the side like this. He says, "Go sit down." Oh, God. So I get up and I sit down, and for 20 minutes he never looks at me. He looks at the business plan. He gets up and he says, "I'm going to ask you this one time. Who wrote this business plan?" I said, "I did." He said, "Go out, make an appointment, and come back in 2 more weeks." So I go out, make an appointment, I come back in 2 weeks in my little suit. I walk in and think he's going to be nicer now. I walk in, he says, "Sit down." So I sit down. He stands up and he looks at me and he says, "I'm going to ask you this once. Who wrote this business plan?" I said, "I wrote this business plan." He said, "Every page?" I said, "Every page. You can ask me anything on that business plan. Just tell me the page." He got the business plan, say this is it, and he threw it down the table, and I caught it at the end. He smiled at me. He says, "You don't need me. If you do everything in that business plan, I read about you in the paper." And they've been doing it ever since. Because I didn't know that I couldn't do it. And I'm here to tell you, if you think you can't do it, I'm telling you, you can do a lot more than you think. Because we have this powerful thing called the brain, and we're not even maximizing it. We're allowing it to become more and more dormant instead of maximizing it. People inherently are smart. So as people become more informed, they just be able to make a better decisions for themselves. And that's what it is. It's about personal information. It's about educating yourself. Just the simple fact of not smoking is huge. The simple fact of not drinking. The simple fact of eating more fruits and more vegetables. The simple fact of getting up and just walking for 20 minutes a day until you can walk for an hour. You know, the simple fact of just getting up and being mobile, going to support groups where people know your pain and your suffering, people who are willing to work in that direction with you. It's just about personal betterment. And that's how you overcome a lot of these things. And the reason I can sit here in complete confidence and tell you that, because I had to do it myself. And I'm telling you, when I speak around the country, I never tell anybody that story, because it's not about that for me. It's about them. I never go present for me. I always go to present for the client. It's not about the people, the audience. It's not about what my experience is. It's about your guys' experience.
And why I bring this up in our group is because, you know, our 8-year anniversary will be April for the support group. And really, when we had the vision of the support group, Christina and I and Dr. Kelly and Dr. Cohan and Dione at the time that was working with Dr. Kelly, who's the nurse practitioner at the time, who really took great care of patients and things, we didn't have a vision that we needed a self-help group. Because I think enough, when patients come out of surgery and the years of having to deal with a pituitary hormonal disorder, they've been years of, you know, in the medical system trying to get information, and it wasn't given to them. So our goal really for the support group, and it still is, and it will continue to be for the next, I hope, a lot of years, is to educate people, to give them power, just like you were saying. Because I believe that education is what's going to help them to make better decisions about their health. Regardless of the situation, I've met people that have recovered from pituitary tumors in 2 weeks. And I've met people that actually die shortly after, you know, and everything in between. And I think the more information you have helps you make better choices. We were both saying time. Time was something on our list that we don't have. Okay, but everybody in a day has the exact number of minutes. You're not given more than me, and I'm not given less than you. But how adamant are we to people in our lives that we give our time away so freely? You know, you have children. It's hard to say no to them. But without you, the mom, taking care of yourself first, these children are never really going to be taken care of in the long run. So, you know, I mean, where do we draw our lines, and why do we get to stand behind that and say, no, adamantly, this is my time for this? Because my health is that important, you know. So that's why Brian wasn't here last year with us, but I like to have him at least once a year, and I hope he'll come back again because he actually really cares about people. He doesn't need another client. He's got plenty. The people that come to him don't know his story, like I know his story, you know. But I bring him and I ask Brian to say these things because usually the people that come here, we've been planted in our head some severe limitations. And, you know, a lot of times I see we can't get over it. We can't move past them, you know. And so I think something like Brian, you know, that's why we have the doctors come. We have you know, the mental health come. We try to give you know, a whole variety because information is more powerful than a self-help group where we just get to talk about our problems. I mean, that's good too, to know people care, but really education is what's going to move you into better choices in recovery.
Let me show you guys something that you might find interesting. It's about marriage. But it kind of relates to what you guys are talking about understanding this and accepting what is good. So I'm going to show you something that was taught to me. You guys are going to love this. Okay, so here we go. Yep. So, actually, let me do this here. What do they tell us? First marriages, 60% of them end in divorce. Right? Second marriages, 57% of them end in divorce. Third marriages, 95% of them are successful.
I guess it takes a while to get around.
But I'm going to show you why. See, in reality, what I told you isn't the case. 100% of marriages end in divorce, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so here we go. You got two people here. Yeah, I told you I'm not an artist either. We got two people here. Give you an example. Are you two married?
Yes, we are.
How many years have you been married?
Actually, 3. We've been together for 16.
Okay, 16 years. Okay. Were you guys married before?
Yeah, my wife passed away in 93.
And how long were you married before then?
12 years.
Okay, 12 years. And you guys been again married how long?
Well, they've been married 3.
3, but you've been together for how long?
Together for 16.
Okay, now watch this. What do they tell us on this? When you get married, you marry two people. You marry your ideal wife, being you, right? So you have your ideal wife, and then you have your real wife.
Are they the same? No.
Now watch this. Your wife is married two people. Your wife is married her ideal husband and her ideal who she's with, right? The real husband. So you've known your wife now for 16 years, etc. Okay? When do we start forming the ideals of our ideal spouse? When do they tell us? What does science tell us? When we're 3 years of age.
Oh.
So from 3 years of age, you start formulating who your ideal spouse is.
What you think a perfect
So guess
spouse
what?
is, right?
I've been with my wife for 25 years, and my marriage is better than it's ever been. You know why? Well, what you have to do, and this is what I mean, that 100% of divorces, 100% of marriages end in divorce. What is the problem? How do they identify a problem? Very simply, a problem is when your fantasies don't match your realities. So they don't match, so now you have a problem. And this is what happens with marriages. So here we go. And I have my ideal wife, and boy, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is my ideal wife, but oh my God, here's Saudi. Here's Saudi. Well, these aren't matching, so I have to make a decision. If I do it right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to divorce my ideal wife, and I'm going to have to marry my wife that I've married. So I spend my time and my energy getting to know my wife. We all have to go through this process, and it's kind of what we were saying before. You have to make a choice about this. You either marry your ideal situation, or you marry the situation that's confronted here. But once you marry this situation, you got to own that. You got to know it. You know what my wife and I do every single month? Well, actually, we do it about every 6 months now, and we've done this for years. Get a piece of paper out, and I write down the 10 things that I want my ideal wife to be. Boom! Because it changes. And guess what she does? She writes down 10 things that her ideal husband has to be, and then we switch papers. And then we sit down in bed and we go through our list. And guess what I do for the next 6 months? I do everything I possibly can to get on that list. And what I always think that list is going to be is completely different than what I get. Open the door. Honor me. Respect me.
It's not nearly as bad as you think.
It never is. Because sometimes it's just the simple thing. But what's so powerful about it is I know what she needs. I'm informed. And the same thing applies to this. You just have to be informed. Once you're informed, I have to make the decision. So I decided that I want to be 100% successful. I never want to get divorced from this wife, but I didn't have a problem divorcing this wife. Did I have a hard time leaving this wife? No, because that wife is trouble.
Yeah.
That wife is going to get me through where I need to be. And like I said before, behind every successful good man in the world, believe me, there's a good woman. And I watched that firsthand with my grandparents. So remember, 100% of marriages end in divorce because you got to divorce that person and marry that person.
Well, I think this is very interesting that you did this scenario because in my mind I'm thinking the same thing. When we go on a workout program, you know, society, you can't watch freaking TV without, you know, Body Beautiful in a gym and advertising for 24-hour fitness. So my ideal workout is going to make me that body, okay? But the reality is this little body is never going to be that 20-year-old's
Right.
body.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Exactly. You know.
Well, you need to know that body.
So I don't want to go to the gym because when I go in the gym, I get depressed, and I may go for a week. But when I don't have my ideal figure in a week, I want to give up.
Yeah.
You know. So I think this is a perfect example for me to remember. I got to divorce that idea of what the gym is. And go to the reality of what the gym is for me.
Absolutely. You know, it's an interesting thing. If you even look at men and women, how long can men look into the future?
About 10 minutes.
They can plan for months and years if they want to, but how far can they look?
Isn't it something like, give me beer and show me something naked?
Right. Exactly.
Pretty much.
How long is that?
About
It takes
2
3
seconds. How long can a woman see in the future?
Oh my goodness.
6 months.
never forget.
Thought process.
Wow.
Totally. It's completely, I mean, Venus and Mars don't come into it. I mean,
That's right.
Women are designed. I'm not showboating here, but women are designed to have to find the ideal provider for their family so they can procreate. Guys are designed to go out and procreate with as many people as possible.
That's right.
I just did a video on
Yeah.
that. It was on like National Geographic. It was so
Right.
true.
That spreads the seed. That's healthy for the
Right.
species.
See, and I don't understand as a society why we just don't adhere to that. No, just kidding. All right, I guess I will close with
Well,
that.
Brian,
Thank
we
you so
wanna
much
thank
for
you
having
so
me here.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we hope you'll come back. Of course,
Always.
you will. I know.